On the other two operations, multiplying and dividing. Copy it on your target and cross out this little typo for me, please. So we're going to focus on the rules first. Let's cover them. We have multiplying and dividing two integers. And what we're going to focus on is their signs. So write that down. Okay, we're always going to look at the signs. And here's your two cases. The signs can either be the same or they can be different. I'm going to put the same down on line 2. Let's start with that. If the signs are the same, what kind of answer are you going to have? Well, you've already done problems like this. Think about 7 times 5. What is 7 times 5? It's 35. What kind of 35 is it? Positive or negative? It's a positive. Well, guess what? If the signs are the same of the two numbers, your product is always going to be positive. The same thing is true if the signs are the same and they're both negative. Negative 7 times negative 5, same signs, you get the positive answer for multiplication, it's still going to be 35, okay? Works for division too. If I have 10 divided by 2, you already know what that is. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Well, what's negative 10 divided by negative 2? When you're dividing the same signs, your answer is positive, so it's going to be a positive 5 again. Same signs, positive for multiplying and dividing. What if they're different signs then? Well, that's going to be the other case. So if you have two numbers with different signs and you're multiplying or dividing, your answer is going to be negative. So if I have a negative 7 times a positive 5, you're going to end up with a negative 35. If I have negative 10 divided by positive 2, you're going to end up with a negative 5. Okay? Different signs with multiplication, you get a negative answer. Same signs with multiplication and division, you get a positive answer. Okay? Your teachers may teach it as like and hate. I always just look for, how many of the negative signs do you have? If you had an odd number of negatives, your answer is negative. If you have two negatives together, they can make a positive, and that's why your answer is positive. Okay? Think about the signs first, okay? I want you to write that down. Think about the signs of your answer first. That's the most important thing. Then do the multiplication like you'd know regularly. So for A, 15 times negative 6, well, I have a positive times a negative. That's going to end up getting me a negative. And now just do 15 times 6. If you need to write it down over here, go for it. 15 times 6 is 90. So it's a negative 90 here. What about B? In B, I have a negative times another negative. Two negatives multiplied get a positive. So we're ending up with positive. And then what's 3 times 23? Once you decide the sign, you just focus on the numbers. So 3 times 23, 69. We end up with a positive 69. You can just write the number. You don't have to put a plus sign in front of it if you don't want to. What about division? If we have negative 60 over 12. Okay, look at this one. That negative sign is out front. That doesn't mean you give it to each of the numbers. You don't write it twice, okay? That means you just give it to one of them. I always bump it up. So this is the same as negative 60 over 12. It would also be the same thing as 60 over negative 12, okay? What it's not the same as is negative 60 over negative 12. That is not the same thing. So either one of these you can do. A negative divided by a positive, same signs or different signs? Different, so we're going to end up with a negative answer. And what is 60 divided by 12? Negative 5. What about this last one, D? Think about the signs first. 625 divided by negative 25. Some big numbers here. Well, what's a positive divided by a negative? A positive divided by a negative is going to end up giving you a negative. So we're going to have a negative answer. And then guess what? If you don't know this division, think of what else you can do with fractions. Maybe I don't know how many times 25 goes into the whole fraction. Okay, fine. Can you just simplify the fraction? Can you divide something out here? Yeah, absolutely. what do you know you can take out of both of these numbers and end up with a whole number? 5. So divide them both by 5. That'll help you with your division. 25, negative 25 divided by 5 is a negative 5. 5 goes into 6, 1 whole time, remainder 1. 5 goes into this 1 and 2, so that's a 12. 2 whole times, remainder 2. 5 goes into 2 and 5 are 25, 5 times. Now that problem's a little easier to work with. What's 125 divided by negative 5? It's a negative answer, and then it's going to be 25. Okay, on these next two, simplify. Remember these rules, follow order of operations. That's your star reminder that I want you to write down on the side. Remember order of operations, okay? So pause the video, write that down, and try A and B, and then press play. Okay, for A, always start inside parentheses, so you're doing negative 6 minus 12. This is what we have to do first. Subtracting integers. How do we do subtraction with integers? It's the same as adding a negative. Okay, so negative 6 plus negative 12, same signs, we're summing them together. We're keeping the sign, so it's a negative 18. Now I have the negative 18 inside of the 30, inside of the parentheses next to the 30. Don't subtract these two. What operation's happening between that 30 and those parentheses? Multiplication. So what's 30 times negative 18? Negative 540. For B, again, start inside the parentheses, so we're starting right in here. Different signs, so you're going to find the difference. Keep the sign of the larger digit, so it's going to be a negative 3 on the inside of there. We still have negative 5 on the outside, and then we still have the minus 2 plus the 5 times 6. The next step in order of operations is multiplication. If you did this one and this one at the same time, that is fine. Negative times a negative makes a positive, and I end up with 15. Positive times a positive makes a positive, and I end up with 30. I have this minus 2 in the middle here. 15 plus 30 is 45, minus 2 is 43. Okay, try this challenge problem. You can pause it. I'm not going to give you the answer to the end, so try this problem first. We can graph using negative numbers now too. That's why we have 4 quadrants on the graph, okay? So here's an equation I want you to use. We're going to complete a table of solutions for y equals 3x minus 1. I want to know what the equation comes out to be when x is negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. Show me the substitution, guys. Don't skip your work. 3 times negative 2, and then we're doing a minus 1. So we're substituting that into the equation. 3 times negative 2, a positive times a negative, ends up with a negative 6, minus 1, ends up with a negative 7. Then you can put your ordered pair together over here. So when x is negative 2, y is negative 7. Okay, keep working. You can work ahead of me on this one if you want. Okay, 3 times a negative 1. I'm using those parentheses when I substitute. Minus 1. 3 times 0, minus 1. 3 times 1, minus 1. And 3 times 2, minus 1. Positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. Watch those negatives. Remember that here's 0. Over here is negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. So if you're already at negative 3 and you're taking one more away, you're going to negative 4 to the left. So this ordered pair is negative 1, negative 4. 3 times 0 is 0, minus 1, negative 1. 3 times 1, 3 minus 1 gives you 2. And 3 times 2, 6 minus 1 is going to give you 5. Now go ahead and graph your points. So I have -2, -7, -1, -4, 0, -1, 1, 2, and 2, 5. Okay? Maybe you're starting to look for a pattern already. Do you notice a pattern in these points? What does that kind of form, or what does that look like? It looks like a line, right? If you wanted, not yet, but eventually we're going to connect them. So this is actually linear. Okay, you're going to learn later on that this is a linear function. And what that means is it forms a line. All right, example 4. The temperature was -1 degrees Fahrenheit, -5 degrees Fahrenheit, -1 degrees Fahrenheit, -5 degrees Fahrenheit, 8, and -6 degrees on 4 consecutive days. That means 4 days in a row. Okay? What was the average temperature for these 4 days? Do you remember how to find the average? Do you know how to find it? Hopefully you do. If you do, write it down. The average is always going to be the sum of the numbers over however many there are, however many numbers there are. So for this problem, we're going to add all of these temperatures. -1 plus -5 plus 8 plus -6. And then we're going to divide by how many there are. We have 4 days, so we're dividing by 4. Add those together in the numerator. What are you going to get? You guys get -4. These two are -6. Plus another -6 is a -12. Plus 8 ends up as a -4 over 4. So what does the average come out to be? -1 degrees Fahrenheit on average. All right, great work. Okay, if you didn't do the challenge back there, again, go back, pause it. I'm going to give you the solution right now. The challenge comes out to, I'm going to skip the work. I want you to do it on your own. -28 over 7, which reduces to -4. Hopefully you got that. If you did, way to go, because this looks pretty intense. If you didn't get it, see where you went wrong, somewhere between the beginning and this step here. Try it again. All right, you guys are ready to move on to the next activity. Thank you.